voice on here as well, just in case. But so we're here with our guest co-curator Halima, Zakiuddin, and this is the exhibition, The Places We Know. So we're going to go through the exhibition and talk through some of the ideas, go through the works, and some of the ways that you can also be part of the exhibition too. Follow me. So this is just, this is something we're going to repeat a few different times, and I feel like we'll go through different versions of it as the exhibition evolves. But, and Halima, if I keep talking, please interrupt me. So I do that sometimes.
Interjections allowed.
Yes, please. So the idea of the exhibition was to open up the collection rather than somebody like me go through and kind of just select things based on some formal or technical or thematic criteria, to really open up the collection to allow an artist we work with a lot, who's a regular part of our community, to trust your eye, to lend your perspective and your taste. If you want to jump in and say something about your part of the process too.
Yeah, so I started most of the artworks based on what I found striking about it. So I love nature, so it's mainly elements of nature or something to do with the places or people that I knew or artists I knew, and something that I found striking in the artwork, like colourful nature, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and which goes to the title of the exhibition as well, The Places We Know. So it might be a bit clearer after hearing about it, but I think it was you, Jess Moraine, who we'll talk about in a second, Jessica Moraine, and myself. We were on a call talking about the exhibition, Halima being the guest, the sort of artist curator, Jess Moraine, who's the new Creative Future writer in residence for the next few months. We were thinking about different ways of how to think about the exhibition, and this idea of familiarity, of artist community, of seeing things that really resonate to you, the sort of sense of familiarity. So we came up with this line, The Places We Know, which isn't just about scenes that might be familiar, but really kind of finding people you know in the exhibition or places that you're familiar with. So as you come into the space, on the left is the title, on the right, because this is where this is staff and volunteers and people and sort of first folks. So as you come in, left there's the title, on the right there's some instructions. Basically there's the same blurb that you have on the website. So just for people who need some info. But then there's some stuff here. Do you want to read that out to me?
Yeah, so basically this is an interactive exhibition. So everyone is free to add their thoughts by answering the questions you will find on the seaprints in the gallery space. You can answer in any way you will like, in writing or drawing. Once you've answered, place your piece of paper on the shelf to your left in the gallery space. If you have any questions, feel free to ask at the desk or a member of staff.
There you go. So before we leave, how many people? About like 10 people. So I expect 10.
You will not be able to leave.
Yeah. The shutters work. So basically, maybe this is something a good place to start off with. So this is, so basically, as Halima, as you mentioned, each of these prints has a set of questions, and these will evolve through the course of the exhibition. And actually, the way that the exhibition will look is also going to evolve a bit as well.
I've got a question. I read the room when I come in, enter. I say hello to whoever's at the thing, and I kind of go clockwise round. So I come to that. I came to that last thing because I followed it. I just read it like a clock face.
So if we can get volunteers to sort of direct people's attention.
That might be a better place somewhere at the start. Kind of I read the room like as the way I come in, the way just the way. But
quite a lot of visitors do tend to go there first.
Do they?
I think
Okay,
I think it's worth getting volunteers to point it out to them.
Okay, yeah.
And I noticed that each plinth has different questions, haven't
Yes.
they? They're not the same questions on each plinth.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's sort of three broad themes.
Who owns colour and why?
So there's three broad themes on each of the prints, and so these will sort of evolve as the exhibition goes on. So, for example, Halima will come up with questions, Jess will come up with questions, and then it'll just gradually change.
If we think of a question, can we write a question on the piece of paper? I suppose there's nothing to stop us, is there?
No. Nothing will stop you.
As long as you put it right.
As long as you put it in there.
We will only stop ourselves, right?
Yeah. And so essentially this is a way of being part of the exhibition because so you'll find that one of the things that's here is that you can answer it either writing or in drawing or whatever means. There's paper or there's pens. They're sort of affixed with
Blue tack.
And
Stop
so
rolling away.
exactly, yeah. So thank you.
People walking off with them. Yeah.
Please don't. We're our budget.
Yeah.
Our budget can't handle it.
Yes.
So you mentioned you walk sort of this way. So I think we could. We'll figure out a way of going through the exhibition, but basically, this is really kind of the central part of the exhibition. So Halima's selection is one part, but there's also this aspect too, which is the interactivity. Because you might come in, you might look at things very passively, and sort of to avoid that, this thing of just kind of looking around, just looking at pictures and meaning. This is sort of one of the things we were trying to think about, how to get people to actually engage with the work in a more of a thorough way. But we can, let's start with this. I've tried my best to, let's start that sentence again. So, because we have three essentially sort of creative voices in putting the exhibition together, there's sort of the gallery voice, the sort of curator, the institutional arts institution voice. There's Halima, who's coming in as an artist and somebody who's very involved in the studio, art making, and then we have Jess Moraine, who's as I mentioned, the curator, the creative future writer in residence, who'll be working on programming for the exhibition as well as writer in residence as well. So the way that the exhibition is interpreted will sort of have three layers too. So there's the gallery voice, and I've tried to keep it as neutral as possible, sort of like very standard art gallery kind of international art English speak. But then also you'll notice that there's a sparseness to the exhibition as well. So there's a lot of space. This is kind of also, I like exhibitions with a lot of space and a lot of space to think. But also I anticipate that as the exhibition goes on, there'll be more. So Halima, I know you've been working on your own kind of interpretive texts for the exhibition, your own responses. So those will appear somewhere around the artworks. And then when Jess responds in her capacity as exhibition poet, her words and her voice will take shape and form in the exhibition as well. So it's starting off very neutral, and then as the exhibition continues, it'll evolve. And
the interactivity will snowball.
Exactly. So we start off with Jan Arden's work. So this is all from the collection, and I don't know if you want to mention a word or two about what why you selected things and what stood out to you.
Yes, I selected Jan Arden's artwork mainly because it stood out to me, the way he's drawn the figures and the cross-hatching of the drawings, and also I know Jan Arden, I admire his work. And the painting is really intriguing because it shows a lot of figures, mythological creatures and dancing, and also the title says Isabella dances, so it makes you think which one is Isabella, who is she, why is she important, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And also one thing just on the process as we go to the next work in the exhibition is that in a way, normally there is a lot of back and forth, I think, when it comes to having a guest curator, but in this case, a lot of the selection is actually directly from you. I did veto and add a couple of things.
And we did it one day as well, just selected all the artworks in one day.
Yeah, and then it sort of happened quite quickly. And a lot of things made sense, especially because it is really sort of your voice or your eye that was guiding you. And there were some interesting things that sort of afterwards, looking through the list and looking through, creating all the documents and doing the interpretation and stuff for the exhibition, was that there were some interesting connections and things. And I would say as well, as we go through, things will start to unfold. So two things started to emerge. One of which is that I guess the two main themes were
People and places.
people and places. So these seem very broad, but actually, like it
They
was,
overlap a lot.
they overlap a lot too. So actually, this is a
for
great example.
this one. Yeah.
So we have this work which is by Ima Rachel Maddox, or Ima, and it's a very sort of mysterious work. Where it's like you have this sort of black and white figure, almost no
Symmetrical,
expression.
yeah, it's very yin yang, is it symmetrical?
Yeah.
Tucked away behind the plinth. It's almost, I almost miss it. It's easy to miss that. I missed that. But I didn't even realise there was an artwork in there because I kind of read the room, scan, and then I didn't see that tucked behind the plinth there. I didn't even realise it was there. So
Behind every corner there's an artwork.
yeah,
But then this
Is it a lino cut?
This one actually, so it's listed as like ink on paper, but it does look a bit
It's
like
like a lino cut.
it does look like a print. But then next to it we have this work, which is by Antonia Atwood. So it's a work called Enthesitis, and it's part of her series. It must have been the chickenpox, I believe it is. I'm just going to fact check.
Maybe it was a chicken.
Maybe it was the chickenpox. I paraphrase that. And so a lot of her work is about depicting the kind of bodily lived experience of chronic illness. And in this case, enthesitis, does anybody know what enthesitis is? I actually had to look this up. So enthesitis is a very painful inflammation of the joints, like a kind of arthritis that results from like psoriasis. And so now that you know that, and you look at this picture of a tree,
yeah,
it becomes very obvious.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, I remember you looked at this and it was sort of a new acquisition of the collection.
Yeah, I maybe accepted that because it was nature, and I love nature, and it was a close-up of a tree. And then later, when we examined it in more detail, we looked at the title and Karim explained that it was about arthritis, and then we saw the connection between people and places, because this is a place, but it's very closely connected to a person, because the person sees the disease of themselves in the tree, of the illness in the tree. So it's like very interconnected.
Yeah. So it's like the human body and the non-human world kind of came together in this picture,
Yeah.
which is like sort of both of your interests in the exhibition. So there's a couple of examples in the exhibition where the sort of non-human world and the human world and community come together. So here we have two works by George Harding, and I think these were a very quick pick for you, Halima, when we were going through the collection, because it was sort of like
Yeah, I picked Mark. Yeah, and I couldn't pick that one later.
yeah.
But Sophie, is Sophie in the collection?
There's a few of the George Harding portraits as well, so it's.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if the Sophie one is. There's one of the. Yeah, there's definitely one of Sophie.
Sophie's really good.
But I don't know if that's in the collection. That's the question.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think it was in the collection.
I remember seeing it on.
Yeah, he did do one.
But yeah,
yeah, very
and
cool.
it's interesting too because you see sort of like just the windows are very.
Yeah,
There's
background
the
is
sort of.
brilliant. Yeah.
You see the from the kind of museum gallery in the foyer as well. So it's like right away you're sort of like, I know this place.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's what you felt, was that it was such a familiar.
Is that one not in the workshop?
The Albert one, I'm not sure. I think that might be pre that. It might have been from the old building.
Yeah, don't know.
The windows look very familiar.
Yeah,
That's sort
it
of
could be.
when we were thinking where to place the work as well, just sort of.
Mm.
Yeah, the Albert one's a lot. It's the strokes are a lot looser. They're tighter on that one.
Yeah.
Your one was not done a lot later.
Yeah, I think like if you're painting,
Yeah.
you work with what you got, don't you? And also you're working in that kind of moment. So
Yeah.
everything you produce on that day or that week.
Yeah.
And then if you leave it a couple of months, it's completely different.
Yeah.
You've got different paint, different materials. So you can see there how.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which brings us to the next work. We're going to have, I think, more tours during the opening as well, so we can get into a lot of the stories and stuff. But this is just a quick run through for.
That's a great one. The Sleep Organs. Yeah, I've not
Yeah.
seen that before.
So this one, why did this one stand out to you? Because this one for me is.
For me, when I first saw this, actually made me think of a factory. So I thought that was actually a factory, or I think it was one of the first places that I
What
picked
sort of
up as
factory,
well.
Halima? Maybe a honey factory. You see the little bees buzzing
Yeah.
around the chimneys, isn't it?
Yeah.
Making something sweet, maybe.
Yeah, it immediately made me think of a factory, and then we read that thing. mapping extract from the settlement fillet, and we looked at fillet, and I came up there was the Asian temple in River Nile in Egypt, and it's still there.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting. It was one of the first artworks we looked at, and then the kind of path that it took us down was really interesting.
Yeah. And it's so it's a really imaginative way of thinking of like landscape, because I know that in your work you do a lot of landscape painting, and so this is something where you have somebody who's depicting a kind of a landscape, a sort of a place, but actually it's
fictional landscape, but it's one you can relate to. It relates bottomless and underground tunnels. I think it looks almost part of it is underground, and that's great. Really appeals to my imagination, imagining what goes on underground, out of sight.
definitely.
Underneath the factory, what's going on, beyond the obvious, the sky, yeah.
And also the fact that it was this sort of like ancient temple from that's from it still exists, as you mentioned. It's sort of in the island in Devana, near Aswan. But the way that it's depicted is so imaginative and very much in Sue Morgan's style. This next work is also another one that stood out to us as well.
Yeah.
Completely different. Opposite completely.
Yeah, it was really because of the colour, because I love bright colours. And as soon as I saw that, it was full of colour, and I chose that one.
Yeah. But then also it's one of these things where it's
Quite abstract.
Yeah, and the more we looked at it, the more first of all, I guess through the process, there was something that stood out to you, and then we did a number of steps where we looked, for example, at the title, we looked at the artist's other work, we tried to find information on record and by looking at the works about the technique, the way that it was done, and I think the title also stood out because it was sort of round shell. But then I think when we started to look at it a bit more, the sort of like place aspect of it.
So started coming out, because that looked like a river and a tree and a person standing in the doorway looking at the corner.
So it's, even though it does look quite sort of abstract at first, and there's these big, thick gestures of paint, but after a while a picture starts to emerge. For me, this is probably the work that I spent the longest looking at, because it's something about less being there really sort of it sort of made my imagination work a lot more than with other works.
Fill the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. So this next one was another one that stood out to you as well. So at first, why did this one stand out to you? This is a work called Torn by Sarah Carpenter.
Yeah. So basically, this painting immediately reminded me of, I don't know if anyone's heard of the Victorian short story called Yellow Wallpaper. It's about a woman who was mentally not well during the Victorian times, and her husband, who's a clinical doctor, he said he thought it would be best for her to stay confined in a room until she got better. So she just spent ages staring at the wallpaper until she started seeing patterns in it and people in it, and then she started seeing like people trapped inside the wallpaper. So it kind of reminded me immediately of that painting, because of that story, because it's a person trapped inside the wallpaper in kind of way, even though the title is torn and it's completely different. The caption that Graham has written is completely different to what I initially thought. That was my first thought, was about the wallpaper, and also the wallpaper is so interesting as well, and the person looking at the eye is really vivid. So
and it's I think this is one of these things where it's sort of and I'm really sort of looking forward to your interpretation coming into the space too, because I remember when you mentioned that, what was it called, the Yellow Wallpaper? Which is that short story you mentioned, where there is a kind of a connection of, in this case, this is a work by this is from an exhibition that Sarah Carpenter did, this must have been a few years ago now, and where the idea was around depicting the body in a particular way, but not depicting the body in a way that allowed for kind of self-criticism and insecurity and anxiety around how one looks, but rather to see oneself in a composition, in a work of art, to sort of creatively use yourself in a self-portrait. And so there's something about this work which for me really felt kind of like breaking free of a lot of that anxiety of the self. which is sort of in a way the opposite of what you, of somebody being trapped.
Yeah.
But there is a kind of connection there, and it's an interesting
Yeah.
thing. The next work is one by Angelique, and I don't know what you want to say about
Yeah,
this one.
I know Angelique really well, and I really like her art as well. It's very beautiful and intricate. So that was the main reason I chose that, and also I really like the colours, the way they blended together. Yeah, I can see it in like leaves and things. Actually, I just saw this now. This looks like a person going downwards.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the face, that's the face, and that's like the person, you know.
Like somebody diving.
Yeah, this is another one that didn't quite fit into people and places. It's more like an abstract piece, but we kind of linked them more to the place because of the leaf type patterns.
Yeah, and it sort of ties into a lot of your interest in nature and
Yeah.
how you depict the natural world. And actually, with this whole sort of cluster of works here, there's this kind of like, you see sort of here the botanical print wallpaper. You see how Angelique has taken parts of leaves and kind of abstracted them in a very colourful way, which is a big part of her work. And then sort of a trio of Pat Muir works. There is actually a new label that I've just printed out that is going to replace this one. But we have 3 works here. There's the Apple Orchard, Light as a Landscape, and Moonlight.
Yeah.
What do you
Yeah,
want to
so
say?
this one was really intriguing. We chose this one initially because it was an apple orchard that looked like an apple, but when we looked at it more closely, we found that there's text underneath that seems to have been washed over with white paint or Tipex or something. And it's all about the apples. It's A is for an apple. There's stuff about how the apple was, you know, the story of, what's it called, the Adam story of how Adam and Eve, how it was, the apple was in that story. It's also about Snow White. So everything we know about the apple has been written on the paper and then kind of washed over, and then the apple's been drawn. But that doesn't really look like an apple. It looks like little circles. It looks very like. When I first saw it, I thought of jewelry. I didn't immediately think match it with the apple because it looks like beads, like jewelry beads to me.
Yeah.
But the title was Apple Orchard. I mean, they looked at it more closely, we saw the writing and everything, so this was really interesting piece.
Is it referencing the apple orchard here, do we know?
No, it's just referencing everything we know about the apple in biblical stories and things like that.
Where was Pat Muir? Was Pat Muir in the hospital?
So Pat has, I think, a long relationship with Bethlem, and with South London. Like I think she studied at the Croydon School of Art. So there could be a relationship.
Yeah.
So it's the gallery has quite a big collection of happiness work, and so I think there's going to be a much longer process of research and documenting and really kind of understanding what each of the works are. But this one was also one that I think stood out to you as well, and it's interesting because I think on the screen is actually even on like
it's quite big, so I didn't realize it was so small.
which is interesting.
Yeah, but it's light as a landscape really was striking, and also because it looked like feathers that had been, and also the technique that had been used, because it's not just a painting, it's like an etching on a print type of etching. So
direct etching.
and we were trying to figure out how exactly was it done. Was it a monoprint or was there feathers pressed onto the glass and then black ink on top and then printed like that? We were trying to figure out how it was done. Because it says etching, but it looks more like a print.
Yeah. So I was looking into it. So apparently it's a direct etching. So it could be the kind of thing where it's like where there's like acid and the feathers are sort of burnt away or sort of leave a residue. This one isn't monoprint though. This is a work called Moonlight.
Yeah.
And there's another one that for me also made sense that you're gravitating towards it because it is sort of has that landscape element and the title, and for me it kind of looks like a very like nighttime scene. Both of these really feel sort of like sort of nighttime scenes with the dappled light. We can go over to this one, which is actually on a lot of
this was one of our most interesting pieces that we found. Because
oh, for sure, yeah. So there's a work called Puzzled, Safe Inside a Jigsaw Puzzle World, which is a mouthful. But so there's a mixed media work, and very kind of curiously mounted, sort of this board on board. And I mean, right away when you look at it, the title sort of makes sense, the jigsaw puzzle world. And in the middle you have these kind of like warmer or more kind of like, I guess, green, lush colors, and these two pieces that look kind of like embracing figures. But then, I remember we saw it, and it seemed like
It seemed like quite straightforward, but then we looked at it more closely and we saw there's actually text on top of the outer side of it. So the text also makes references to war a lot, maybe to the Boer war, not the Boer, apartheid in Africa, which might have been around the time Pat Mayer was living. So it makes a lot of things about economics, war, soldiers, lots of like dangerous things, but inside the middle is like warm and kind of cozy, and then the further out we go, the pieces become more jagged, and then has all these references to war and things. So the title kind of really makes a lines together, because it says safe inside the jigsaw puzzle world. So the inside part is where the artist feels safe, maybe in her home, and the outside is the outside world, or the wider world where it's unsafe, and then there's darkness around the edges as well. So maybe leading on to darkness, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
And it's one of these things which seems just like you said, sort of a very kind of soft work, and very sort of like it looks more colourful and formal. But then some of the newspaper clippings are quite shocking, quite like sort of murder, war, massacre, uprising, genocide. Like these sorts of words keep coming up. And in a way, even though this could have been done decades ago,
it's still relevant today.
Still very relevant today. So, so here we have sort of two pairs of works. On the left, we have two works by Daniel Wieging, called Threshold. And I'm curious about sort of your selection of these works.
Yeah, so I chose this one. That one was chosen by Green, but I chose this one because it looked like it made it look on my eye because it was so striking. It looked like the fire had been projected on one side of the artist's face, and then I was really curious about the process behind it as well, because photography is not a medium I work with, so I didn't know how he got the light across the face like that. But that's what caught my eye with that one. And I also know Daniel Wieging as an artist, so I like his work as well. So yeah, chose that.
Yeah. So this work, it's from a series called Threshold, and this is where this was exhibited at the Science Gallery a few years ago, and this is originally a two-channel video work, so you had two videos that were next to each other, and essentially it was like light projected onto the artist's body. So here you have like fiery light across the face, and here it's sort of like the chest and collarbone. And it's part of a series that deals with the sort of feeling, with like the sort of feeling of self-harm, that sort of like the really difficult to describe sensations of things leading up to it, the kind of what many people describe as the euphoria or calm that comes after it. And it's something that's a journey for the artist. And it's one of these things where it's something so troubling or difficult is really reshaped into something that, you know, caught your eye, that sort of has this kind of like beauty to it, that has this sort of this sense. And I think using self-portraiture is, for in the history of photography, you know, you can go back almost 150 years, and using self-portraits as a way to explore the inside of one's mind is something that has such a long tradition.
And Daniel is our next solo show, isn't he? After this show,
exactly. Yeah.
Daniel will be the next show after that.
So this is a hint into the future.
A trailer.
Exactly, the trailer. And here's another pair of works as well, by Max Reeves. And one of these is one of the ones that you selected. What's that? Oh, I can't remember if you selected.
I think you chose both of them.
Oh, okay.
But I really like that one, especially because of the windswept. And I think these were chosen afterwards. We had done the initial selection.
I ran these by you afterwards.
Yeah. And I really liked your choice as well because it tied into our theme of places and people, and also how the landscape looks really like windswept.
Yeah.
Fallen trees.
So Max Reeves is so we actually have our sort of photographer's corner here. I never thought about that until just now. But so Max Reeves, in sort of like I think from 2020 to 22, produced sort of a body of work that goes by a couple of different names, but it's a series called Albion Dreaming and or Albion Dreams. Let me just fact check. Albion Dreamtime. There we go. And basically found himself going on day trips to basically as far as you could go on a day trip from London, from the capital, and ended up in various places like in Kent, for example, where these photos are taken. And one of the things with his work that really stood out to me and I wanted to propose for the exhibition was that these could be very like normal scenes. For example, just a regular fence with the remnants of a tree or a stone. This could be sort of any part of the coastline or sort of near the sea.
Is that not double exposure?
I don't think it is now, actually.
Couldn't have left though.
Well, that's sort of like it looks like he's using kind of like a wide-angle lens, and that's like a leaf that's right up to the camera. It could be a double exposure, but it does look like it's like a windy scene with the leaf right up to the.
Because he's always got his camera around his neck. He goes everywhere. He has his camera. He's like one of those, but he always uses film roll.
Yeah. So it's and there's something about this series where basically like even just everyday scenes seem like there's this almost like haunted, kind of like this very sort of magical, mythical kind of thing, and that's very much a big part of his, from this series as well, is this sort of hauntedness and the everyday landscape.
Yeah, there's no figures in it, but you can see.
That's got two eyes.
Yeah, I thought that as well.
There's no people, but the things come alive, don't they?
Yeah.
But he has like a whole load, like his main photographs are like of folk, Morris dance,
yeah.
and
There's
the
actually-
whole
Yeah,
folk
and we do.
scene.
Yeah, we have some of his books for sale down the bottom shelf over here.
Yeah, the white sailing.
Yeah, the black swan was
Yeah.
that's brilliant.
He loves it all.
Ben Edge.
So it's so there's this kind of seeing nature and landscape in a way where there's almost like something like it's alive in a way, which I also see in your work too. And this concludes the exhibition. Halima, do you want to say anything at the end of the tour?
No, I really enjoyed working on this exhibition with Kareem. It was a really exciting opportunity.
Excellent. Well, for me too as well. And it's nice to have another eye into the collection and seeing where it takes us. So yeah, to be
Thank you.
continued. Thank you.